morning. Welcome to North Chapel. Welcome to August. Yes, it's wonderful to see all of you here this morning on the first Sunday of August, 2025. My name is Hope Yeager. I'm the service coordinator today. If you're visiting, we invite you to sign our guest book, which is at the back of the sanctuary. So moving on to announcements, Tatum is here to provide the children's program, and here also is your reminder to silence cell phones and pagers and things that make noise for during our service. After the service today, the coffee hour will actually be lemonade on the front porch, so we can all gather out there. There are large print orders of service at the back, and also hearing devices on that back table for those who need them. And there are many announcements in the order of service and on the church website about what's happening here in North Chapel, and I recommend you take a look at those at some point. Also, while we're on announcements, there is a blood drive here Friday, August 8th, starting at 11:30 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. So, there are posters of this? Yes. Joanne, yes. Thank you, for people to take home as a reminder. Excellent. So the worship theme for the month of August is inclusion. So for opening words this morning, I'm going to read to you the Sherry Woodbury poem that's in your order of service that the worship committee selected with Jane Hufferdine's help to articulate our hopes about inclusion for ourselves and our community. To all who are yearning for community, come in, be among us. To all who are just getting started, to all who long to go deeper, to all with tender places needing care, come in, be among us. To the ones who have healed and have care to give, for those who are curious and hungry to learn, for those who know that they have something to teach, come in, be among us. For the ones who are just beginning to suspect they might nurture others becoming. To the young and the old, the innocent and the jaded, the fresh of mind and the deeply steeped, there is room here for each and every one. Come in, be among us. We'll now have a moment of meditation.
With the same information, we may see the world in different ways. I don't like email to begin with, and I had received an email from my friend Ginny inviting me to a birthday party. And I thought, let me be really good about it this time, and I typed out, I'd be glad to come. Can I bring anything? And is this still your address? Or something perfectly reasonable. And then I didn't press send. I forgot. So she texted me a few days later and said, I never heard back from you. Do you want to come to the party? And I said, oh yes. I'll just go ahead and send that email that I just must have not sent. This is in my draft folder. I'll just send it along. And then I forgot. So she calls me a third time and she says, I still haven't heard from you. And I said, oh my God. So I went right to the email and I wrote out, I thought I'd resent this. And I sent it along, and I saw that it got delivered. And then she called me a fourth time. And she said, what's going on? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, I got your email. And I was like, great, And she said, what did you mean by that? And I wrote, I thought I had resent this, I''D, I thought I'd resent this. She read, I thought I would resent this. With the same information, we may see the world in different ways. I pray for you, and you pray for me. I love you, and I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, and I need you to survive. When Hezekiah Washington sings this song, when he leads the choir with these words, you can feel the movement in your soul. If you can still open your soul to movement. We are growing so stiff these days. We are growing rigid and inflexible. When Hezekiah Washington leads the singing, he does so with his whole soul. He leads with his whole entire heart. Why choose otherwise? What is the last thing that you did with your whole entire heart? I saw this 10-year-old this week make a hockey stop skid on his mountain bike in the rain. And then he sped off down the sidewalk, racing boldly through the middle of every puddle that he could find. It was your standard mountain bike. There were no fenders on the wheels, so he came to have this rain-soaked stripe up the back of him, delivered there by the rear tire. I can only imagine what the front of him must have looked like. He didn't seem to be bothered by that in the slightest. I need kids like that in my life. I need to remember the kid in me that loves to race through puddles. I saw myself in this kid, which is funny, because I think it was the same kid that I saw being really mean to another one of the kids just a few months ago. And I didn't see myself in him at that time, but I did the other day. Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. Today is Sunday, August the 3rd, and the title of this morning's reflection is I Need You to Survive. To all souls I say good morning. It is good to be together. For All the Saints was a song that we sang at the beginning of ministerial gatherings. And if you saw it in the music, there's a rest. The first beat is a rest. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. For all the saints, right? At the ministerial gatherings, the neophytes, the newbies, would be found out because the plan was to count it off. For all the saints, 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the downbeat, all of the people who've been conditioned slam their books down on the table and just scared the hell out of everybody who hadn't been around before. Let us sing a hymn. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. You hear the scream. Ministerial fun and games. Is it okay if I share a story with you about the chocolate bunny pointer? Okay, it had been the very key to their survival. Before I do, I just want to quote this. This reflection is driven by one line in For All the Saints, which is, and when the strife is fierce and the conflict long, steals on the ear the distant triumph song, and hearts are brave again and arms are strong. That's us. So on the trip across the country, two college friends packed up an old Volvo and headed west. They packed up a tent and sleeping bags, and they had little more than a couple of $100 to their name, and trusting parents at home with larger bank accounts at the ready. These two friends weren't interested in taking unnecessary chances. They were daring, yes, but they were not particularly brave. They were excited about the journey that was in store. Buy a chocolate bunny, one of the two travelers was advised, the one who was a little bit more laid back than the other. Most of the advice that they had received until that point had been practical. Bring a flashlight, bring a first aid kit, bring identification and emergency contact numbers, don't keep all of your money in one place, that kind of thing. So the chocolate bunny pointer seemed to come from outer space. It came from nowhere and caught this particular traveler by surprise. I don't eat chocolate, he responded, hoping that the conversation would end there. He wasn't seeking any unsolicited advice. The advisor, though, repeated herself, this time a bit more seriously. She said, buy a chocolate bunny and keep it with you on the journey. Store it in a place that is cool enough so that it does not melt. When the time comes for you to use it, and it almost always does, you'll be really glad about the bunny. I don't know why that was particularly funny laughter. This advice came from a woman who he had never seen before. Her demeanor was strong and stern, but her affect was kind. The wisdom of what she said would become more obvious in hindsight, but at the time it didn't make very much sense. She said, perhaps from experience, that most post-college trips across the country are rarely free of personal drama and interpersonal disaster. Ongoing arguments between friends in a car over hours and over hundreds and thousands of miles. This turned out to be the case, and it all started over nothing, over driving style preferences. How high do you rev the engine before shifting out of second gear into third gear? The two college friends had differing opinions on the subject, and thanks to college, they could express those opinions with a rather impressive vocabulary. One friend was high-strung. He was a high-rev, high-maintenance kind of guy. The other friend was low-key. He was a low-rev, low-maintenance type. The high-rev friend was impatient, and it was like that he had lightning bolts strapped to his sneakers. He was always on the go, fast and urgent. He was constantly on the move. The low-rev friend, on the other hand, had a stillness in his soul, which utterly annoyed the other guy to no end, and yet, somehow, they were drawn to one another. Opposites attract, I suppose. They were low and high revolution drivers. They were low and high maintenance friends. And that was just fine for a while, north from central New Jersey and then west through the state of New York, moving towards Niagara Falls underneath Lake Ontario. It was just fine through parts of Canada and into Michigan. It started getting harder west of South Bend, Indiana, but that didn't slow them down very much. They made it past Chicago, they made it past Madison, they made it past Minneapolis, but the fighting got really bad in the Badlands. South Dakota almost did them in, and wide Wyoming was worse. It was there that they just stopped talking. It was hard for both of them. They just couldn't do much of anything but fight. They couldn't do the practical things. They couldn't even say the practical words. So much for college and an impressive vocabulary. Of what good are so many words when we cannot make meaning with our lives? In the midst of their fighting, they stopped for an early lunch, a roadside place, a trucker stop. They ate quickly. They changed drivers and they got back in the car, but heading east, away from their destination. The high rev guy, the high maintenance guy, was doing the driving at this point, and he didn't notice that he was going in the wrong direction. The low-key guy surely did, and he tried to share the news, but he couldn't get more than a few words out before he got shut down and shut up. He tried again, and then he tried a third time, but the driver was not listening. So he opened up his journal and he began to write. And he wrote down his passions until they matured into poetry. He wrote loving and sorrowful words that began to soften his heart. Of that moment in time and of the conflict that they were in, he wrote, "This feels like the same place. I think we've been here before. When you had lightning on your feet, and I wore a deep blue band around my arm. Do you remember me?" The deep blue band was a private reference. It recalled a beautiful thing that had happened back at Walden Pond in their college years. Walden Pond is where Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau spent a lot of time 200 years ago, thinking about the nature of the spiritual world. Anyway, the two friends had been sitting quietly by the water's edge in Walden for some time, and the ducks had become quite comfortable with them. Brown ducks, female mallard ducks, beautiful but fairly average-looking ducks, until one of them fanned her wings and revealed her brilliant blue iridescence. You couldn't see it at first. You couldn't see it when her wing was folded. You could only see it when you were still and when you were quiet enough to see it. Ducks only reveal their true colors when we are still and quiet enough. Ducks wore a deep blue band under wing. The passenger friend wrote a poem. What the poem says to me is that the writer felt a lot like that brown duck before the big reveal, before they understood that they were going in the wrong direction, when they couldn't speak to one another, and they couldn't get still and get quiet enough for the beautiful blue to be revealed. He wrote, "This feels like the same place. I think we've been here before. When you had lightning on your feet and I wore a deep blue band around my arm, do you remember me? I went walking yesterday. I was finding me a way to fly. And for the wind to come my way, I'm busy thinking about, well, maybe if I try. And so I hold out my hand, still unsure of what I might find as the rise and fall of winds recall a time I left behind, deep in your memory and so many miles away." I've been talking to a friend, reminding him again to see that moving once across the sky is the sun that he and I get for free. And so I hold out my hand, if just for the warmth it might bring, and I do my best to fill my pockets at this holy offering. Deep in your memory, do you remember me? I don't want to lose you at all, and I feel like I'm losing. The writing process had eased his pain, the pain of the traveler, the pain that he was experiencing. And just as it did, the driver noticed that they were moving in the wrong direction. "Oh my God, we're going east. Why didn't you say anything?" And at this, the passenger smiled a soft smile and took a breath and said nothing at all. And the driver said, "You did try to tell me, didn't you? And I wasn't listening because I was too angry." And the passenger said, "I was being hard on you about the way that you were driving. I was only trying to be clear, but I think I may have sounded mean. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen," the passenger said. And they found a place to turn around, and they opened up a bag of chips, and they set out boldly going west again. That night, they cooked fresh fish on a Coleman stove and ate it with their bare fingers right out of the cast iron frying pan. And for dessert, the passenger finally dug out the chocolate bunny. It had not melted. It was cool and dry. It was perfectly preserved. It was in mint condition. And after a couple of thousands of miles, this really pleased the passenger. the poet who had written such lovely words. He said, "Before we set out on this journey, this woman gave me some advice. She told me to buy this chocolate bunny, and now I think I know why. Chocolate bunnies are ridiculous, and so are the fights that we've been having. I think this bunny is supposed to help us to get over ourselves." "I don't eat chocolate," the driver responded. And he said, "That's not the point. Neither do I." And the passenger poet said sharply, still slightly frustrated, slightly defeated, slightly exhausted, and slightly mad, "The point is," and he took a breath and lowered his expectations. And he said, "The point is that beyond all of our ridiculousness, in spite of how foolish we can be, sometimes, both of us, we never have to compromise our friendship. We never have to sell ourselves short. We can choose to never be less than brothers." And there was a silence, and there was a stillness in the air. Even the fire was quiet for a moment. It seemed like an almost sacred time, marking the end of a very difficult day. I mean, Hollywood could not have scripted it any better. And then the other friend said, "You mean to tell me that you bought a chocolate bunny in New Jersey? A chocolate bunny that neither one of us can eat. And you stowed it away and carried it over state lines and borders and time zones and mountain ranges to tell me not to be ridiculous and foolish about a friendship? What kind of idiot does that? That has to be the coolest thing I have ever heard. And I love you with my whole heart. So again, I ask you, what is the last thing that you did with your whole heart? Was it resolving conflict with friends or family, or settling a dispute of some kind? Was it racing through puddles and making hockey stops in the rain on a mountain bike? Or was it prayer? If you're like me, it was prayer. Prayer can be the hardest thing one can do with one's own heart, especially in the presence of fear or in the aftermath of injury. We tend to stiffen, we tend to fight in the presence of fear and in the aftermath of injury. Sometimes it feels like it's almost impossible for us to continue in the right direction so quickly, without even knowing it, we've spun ourselves around and we're doubling back. We're retreating to what we think are safer places. We get scared and we rush back inside an array of comfortable rigidities, the rigidities of faith and righteousness, the rigidities of race and culture, the rigidities of selective memory. Rigidity tends to oversimplify complexity. Rigidity tends to close the mind when the soul wants us to open, tends to harden the heart when compassion wants us to stay supple, tends to stiffen the body when grace needs for us to stretch. We go down the wrong roads sometimes. We go in the wrong direction. We double back unaware. We retrace our footsteps sometimes. We go round and round in circles, retracing old patterns, rehearsing old wounds, when other things are possible, when we realize that we need one another. In Maryland, we tried to sing this song. I pray for you, you pray for me, I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth, I love you, I need you to survive. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me, I need you to survive. It is God's will that every need be supplied. And we were gonna sing that song, but we got into a fight about the words. Some of us objected to the use of the word God. Some of us objected to the use of the word His to describe God. And we missed the whole part about I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. For the writers of the song were not stumbling over those words. Their intention was clear, and their intention was not dissuaded by the arguments we were having. We're not inconsistent with the arguments we were having, but we couldn't get to the good part for the sake of the argument. We couldn't find our chocolate bunny. A few days ago, someone, we don't know who, stenciled out Free Palestine onto a piece of oak tag paper and applied it to one of the rails in front of Shir Shalom. If you remember, Shir Shalom, the synagogue here in Woodstock, has a white rail fence in front of it. And on one of the central rails, they wrote in red paint, Free Palestine. Which just rippled through that community as a violation. That's our house, right? That's our larger house. We may worship here, but we're part of a larger community that includes St. James and the Congo Church and Our Lady of the Snows and Shir Shalom and all of the churches in the Upper Valley, all of the houses of worship in the Upper Valley. All of us are trying to make life meaningful. All of us are trying to make life beautiful for ourselves, for one another, trying to bring meaning to the tragedies, trying to grow strong and move forward. I don't know if you know this, but my first day here, before I started at North Chapel, I came up in the wake of Charlottesville. Remember the Charlottesville tragedy, the Unite the Right rally that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia, and a car was driven into a crowd of people and Heather Heyer was killed, several people were injured. Alex Field was the driver of that car. He's now in jail. And there were protests across the country, and I was in Boston. I was going to Boston that next weekend, and I was there with my friends, and I was like, the UUA was, at the ready, they were armed and, well, I shouldn't say armed, they were galvanized to go out into the streets and protest loudly for freedom. I knew there'd be 50,000 people there, and I knew that there would be very few people in Woodstock, and I drove to Woodstock, and I ran into Angel Urbino, who said, "Do you want to stay at my house? You have no place to stay, right?" And I was like, "Yep, no place." And she let me stay there, and I sat there, walked onto the green, and I saw this woman talking about how important it is that we don't lose trust and don't lose faith with one another. And I thought, I wish I could be saying that, but I don't have credibility in this. No one knows who I am yet, I can't say, I have important things to say, and I'm going to be the new minister. And I started to walk away, and this arm reached out, like, one of the gadget arms, they're 14, and she just grabbed me. She didn't stop talking. She just was like, and when she was done with her words, she knew who I was, and we fell into conversation. The idea that we can't stand with one another is a cosmic absurdity to us. Even as we make decisions that I don't agree with. She and I differ over certain things, but we will not stand apart from one another. We will agree to stay engaged so that we can find a better path than the one we're on. For the failure of our conversations, there is food stacked up at border crossings. For the failure of our conversation, there are children who are hungry and don't have water enough to eat. For the failure of our conversations, we are brokenhearted in this room right now. And a better conversation is possible. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me. Agree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. Two things. One is that the God that I recognize doesn't care about the gender of that word, and doesn't care whether you say God or not. Cares about whether or not you love one another into tomorrow. That's our charge. Two, I need you to survive has two readings, right? I need you, like, to survive, like you have the life energy that I need, and I need you to deliver it to me because I need you in order to survive. And then the other one is compassionate and empathetic, which is, I love you, and whatever path you're choosing, I need you to survive. So let's hold both of those in strength. And even though the news is terrible, think about the oceans of people who are pissed off right now, who are revolutionarily angry right now, who are healing from sorrowful wounds right now. We're coming, we're strong, don't doubt it. Maybe so. Blessed be. And amen.